What is going on, guys? In this tutorial I'm going to show you how you can write a Java application that converts binary to text. So let's go right ahead and open our text editor. If we come to the JGrasp, I've already written the code. I'm just going to take you through the steps so that you can understand what's going on. Okay, so let's scroll down to the bottom of the code. This is the entry point for our application. The first thing that will happen when you're running your application, it's going to create an anonymous object and then call a method start in the decode binary class. If we come up here, we can see that the start method is going to call a method called getBinary. This method called getBinary is defined down here. So the first thing we did was to declare a variable of type string called binary, and then we're going to prompt the user to enter the binary that they want to decode, and then we're going to accept that binary. Here we're just removing all the spaces that may be in between or at the end or at the beginning of the string. Let's say, for example, somebody types 00 space 00 tab space, maybe there are spaces in between the binary, then we're going to remove those. Then we're going to verify that the length of the entered binary conforms to the standard, meaning that it has 8 bits for every character. So the length of that entered binary modulus 8 should give us 0, otherwise it's an invalid binary. So we're gonna throw the new exception, which will get handled down here. As you can see that we're printing please enter a valid binary, and then we're calling the very same method. So this concept is called recursion, whereby a method is calling itself until a certain criteria is met. Now in our case, the criteria is that you need to enter a valid binary. Until that happens, we're gonna keep calling this method inside itself. Now if the binary length is okay, then we're gonna come to the else part. The else part is going to check if the binary is valid by passing the binary to a method called validateBinary. This method called validateBinary is defined here. So the first thing it does is declare a variable called isValid and set it to true. Now we're gonna loop through our string. Now if we find anything other than 0 and 1 in our string, that will only mean that the binary is incorrect. In that case, we're gonna set the isValid to false, break out of this loop, and then return the isValid, which is false. Now if the validateBinary method returns true, we are going to call a method called decodeBinary. But if it returns false, we are going to print binary contains only ones and zeros, and then we're gonna throw a new exception which is gonna get handled down here, and then we're gonna use again its recursion, so it's gonna call itself until you enter a valid binary. Now if you entered a valid binary, it's going to call this method called decodeBinary, which is defined down here. Now this method is going to declare an array of integers called ASCII using the binary conversion numbers, which is just 128, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, and 1. Now the next thing to do is to declare an array that will store the Unicode values. The next thing is to convert our binary 8 bits to Unicode values. So we're going to declare a variable called count, and then loop through our string, incrementing by 8, because remember 8 bits makes 1 character, 1 byte. First thing, we're gonna increment count because we set count to -1 out here. So we're gonna increment count before we go inside, and then we're gonna take 8 bits using the substring method from index x to index x plus 8. Then we're gonna declare a variable called value and set it equals to 0. And then we're gonna go character by character in our string called bits and use the ASCII array to get the Unicode values. Then we're gonna add the value to Unicode array at index count. And then once we are done, we're going to call a method called Unicode to text and pass the Unicode. This method is defined down here. So this method is going to look through our Unicodes array and assign appropriate characters as per the Unicode value. So this is basically the smallest character. So we are starting from the smallest character up until 256. And then we're going to print them character by character until we complete our string. So that's how it's gonna work. Let us run the application. So the first thing I'm going to do is to open a browser and come to this binary converter. I'm just going to type if you look down here, we can see the binary for this text. So I'm going to copy this binary, come back to my application and paste it. Let's hit enter. As you can see, it converted the binary back to text. Writing Xcoding is the best channel on YouTube. If we go back to the browser, this is what we typed here. Now let's try to write something else. Okay, now let's copy this binary again, come back to the application, let's run it again, let's paste this binary, hit enter. As you can see, it converted this binary back to text. Please do not forget to subscribe. Thank you very much.